The savannah is eerily still in the first light of dawn. A thin veil of mist clings to the dry earth, and somewhere in the tall, gold-tinged grass, a fresh carcass steams with the last traces of warmth. A lion pride surrounds it, bloody-mouthed, heaving with the exertion of the night's effort. Muscles twitch in the flanks of the dominant male as he stands over the prize, his ribs rising and falling with each breath that smells of iron and dust. The kill, a wildebeest, lies ruptured at the gut. It was earned in a flurry of pursuit, strangulation, and blood. But the kill itself means nothing without the struggle that follows. Because in this world, the kill is only half the battle. Keeping it is the rest. Already trouble circles the fringes. Hyenas have been watching since before the final death cry rang out. Their silhouettes flit across the edge of the clearing like shadows wearing fur. They are not in a hurry. They know the rules of this dance. They don't have to kill to feed. They only have to wait. What unfolds in the next 30 minutes is less a hunt than a hostile takeover, an unspoken war for ownership where teeth replace contracts and numbers beat strength. The lionesses growl low and defensive as the first hyena steps out of the grass, high-shouldered and grinning grotesquely. Then another, then 5, then 10. Their laughter is not joy, it's strategy. A psychological weapon. The air grows charged with tension. Vultures circle above but remain aloft for now, waiting to see who bleeds first. Down below, it's a game of nerves, of thresholds. The male lion lunges forward, swatting the air with his paw, a mock threat. The hyenas scatter, but only slightly. They're testing reactions, gauging resistance. They've done this hundreds of times. What they lack in size, they make up for in endurance, coordination, and sheer audacity. Across the animal kingdom, the notion of ownership is fluid. A kill is not a guarantee. It's a temporary claim staked with tooth and claw. Even apex predators, lions, leopards, cheetahs, find themselves on the losing end of these power exchanges. Studies have shown that up to 25% of lion kills are stolen by scavengers like hyenas or other lions. Cheetahs lose their prey even more frequently, often unable to defend it at all due to their more slender build and solitary nature. And in many ecosystems, the act of killing is less profitable than the act of taking. But this battlefield extends beyond the open plains. In the trees, a leopard balances precariously on a high branch, jaws clamped around the neck of an impala. Below, a troop of baboons gathers, barking furiously. They're not predators in the traditional sense, but their numbers and boldness make them dangerous. The leopard hisses, baring its fangs as a marabou stork lands nearby, watching with a glint of cold intelligence. The scent of blood has drawn an entire cast of opportunists. This is not just dinner, it's a spectacle, a carnival of thieves convened by the aroma of death. As scavengers grow bolder, predators adapt. Leopards, unlike lions, drag their kills into trees for safety, hoisting hundreds of pounds of meat into the branches with powerful neck and back muscles. But even this strategy has flaws. A slip, a moment of inattention, and gravity does the hyenas' work for them. Below, they wait like clockwork. They understand that time and inevitability are often more effective weapons than teeth. In the Kalahari, brown hyenas track cheetahs silently, sometimes for hours. They don't intervene in the chase, they simply observe. When the cheetah finally takes down a springbok, panting and exhausted, the hyena walks in. Calm, deliberate, no rush. The cheetah, unwilling to risk injury in a fight it cannot win, backs off. It's an unwritten contract signed with survival as the ink. This pattern echoes across continents. In boreal forests, wolves may scavenge from bear kills. In the Arctic, foxes follow polar bears, feeding on leftovers from seals. In the Amazon, black vultures lurk near jaguar haunts. Everywhere there is meat, there is a hierarchy not of who hunted it, but who can keep it. And yet, it is not mere laziness or cowardice that drives this behavior. Scavenging is, biologically speaking, one of the most efficient survival strategies in nature. It reduces the energy costs associated with hunting, which are immense and often unsuccessful. Lions, for instance, only succeed in around 30% of their hunts. Every kill they make is a valuable resource, one that is almost always at risk. Sometimes the tables turn. A lioness, heavily pregnant and limping from an old injury, stumbles across a freshly killed buffalo, abandoned by a pack of wild dogs spooked by elephants. In this rare moment, the scavenger is also a queen. She feeds ravenously, glancing over her shoulder as vultures descend in a frenzy of beating wings. For her, this stolen meal may be the difference between life and death. For her and for the cubs growing inside her. Even humans, long before organized hunting, were likely scavengers, tracking predator activity, waiting for the right moment to harvest marrow from bones or fat from abandoned kills. Our ancestors watched the same power struggles play out across ancient grasslands. We learned not only from hunters, but from thieves. There is no morality in the wild, only energy in versus energy out. A clean kill is a luxury. The true law is opportunism, and in that law, a stolen kill is as good as any earned. Whether it's a bone-strewn lion feast hijacked by cackling hyenas, or a treetop ambush ending in mid-air chaos, the battlefield of the stolen kill is not defined by who strikes first, but by who lasts longest. It's nature's oldest crime scene, and it never goes cold. The grasslands shimmer with late afternoon heat, the air thick with the smell of dust, dung, and sweat-slick hide. Somewhere between the rustling acacia groves and the cracked, sun-baked earth lies a watering hole carved by countless generations of hooves. Here, the wilderness pulses with a sense of waiting. A young zebra nickers anxiously. A troop of impalas stares frozen in the direction of the wind. Nothing moves, but something watches. Not a lion, not a leopard, but something more organized, more calculating. The first sound is a laugh, but not one of humor. It is a high-pitched cackle, bouncing through the scrub like broken glass. Then another, and another. Spotted hyenas have arrived, and unlike lone stalkers or ambush cats, they do not hunt in silence. They announce themselves, not as a warning, but as a declaration. This land, this carcass, this moment, it belongs to them now. Spotted hyenas are not the mangy scavengers of myth. They are apex strategists, deeply social, fiercely hierarchical, and astonishingly intelligent. In fact, their brains, relative to body size, are larger than those of lions, and the complexity of their social structure rivals that of primates. A hyena clan is not a chaotic mob. It is a structured syndicate. At its head stands a matriarch, not the biggest but the boldest. She dominates not just through aggression, but through a tightly maintained network of dominance relationships, grooming bonds, and food control. Beneath her is a stratified order where every hyena knows its place, enforced not by constant violence, but by subtle signals, postures, vocalizations, and shared knowledge. Power is inherited. Daughters of high-ranking females outrank sons of lower ones from birth. This system allows hyena clans to operate like a fluid, mobile army. Unlike lions, which tend to lounge near kills and defend static territories, hyenas patrol vast areas, sometimes over 1,000 square kilometers, using intelligence networks to track both prey and rival predators. They know where lions made their last kill. They remember the migration patterns of wildebeest. They time their movements to the rhythms of the land, not with instinct alone, but with cognition. When a clan moves in on a target, be it a carcass or a live prey animal, they act with eerie coordination. Observers have noted behaviors that resemble battlefield tactics, flanking movements, feints, and even decoy distractions. In one documented case, a group of hyenas harassed a lioness feeding on a zebra, drawing her away in a slow, spiraling retreat, while a subgroup of females surged in from the opposite side to grab the meat. It was over in minutes, no brute force, just tactics. But hyenas are not limited to taking. They make kills too, and often more efficiently than the predators they rob. In fact, in many ecosystems, especially during dry seasons, spotted hyenas account for the majority of kills among large carnivores. Their method is brutal but effective. They test herds for weakness, isolate the vulnerable, and wear down the target with stamina and relentlessness. Where cheetahs rely on speed and lions on ambush, hyenas rely on psychological warfare. Once a victim stumbles, they close in as a pack, their jaws exerting over 1,000 pounds of force, capable of crushing bones like dry twigs. Their table manners are equally pragmatic. Hyenas waste nothing. They consume bone, hide, hooves, even horn. Their stomach acids are among the most corrosive in the animal kingdom, capable of breaking down calcium and digesting bacteria that would kill most creatures. In doing so, they don't just feed themselves, they sanitize the savannah. Carcasses left by lions rot quickly. Those consumed by hyenas vanish, leaving only a skull or two as a quiet signature. And yet, for all their efficiency, Hyenas are frequently misunderstood, both by the animals they live among and by us. Lions view them as pests, rivals, and threats. The two species are in constant cold war. Lion prides will go out of their way to kill hyena cubs, raiding dens and scattering mothers. In return, hyenas work in numbers, bullying lions off kills when the odds tip in their favor. It is not uncommon to see a group of a dozen hyenas circling a single male lion, probing, snarling, rushing, retreating. Sometimes it's enough to break the lion's nerve. Sometimes it isn't. The price of miscalculation is high, but so is the reward. Even within their own kind, hyenas navigate a world of intrigue. Females dominate, but only if they can keep control. A young upstart, if backed by enough allies, can mount a social coup. Food is currency, grooming is politics, and status is everything. Cubs born to high-ranking mothers get better milk, earlier access to meat, and safer den space. The hierarchy is so rigid that even siblings from different mothers are treated differently based on their maternal lineage. This complexity spills over into communication. Hyenas produce over a dozen distinct vocalizations, including whoops, giggles, groans, yells, and soft moans. Each carries specific meaning. A long-distance whoop can summon allies from kilometers away. A giggle, often mistaken for laughter, is actually a sign of nervousness or submission. And beneath the surface lies a constant negotiation of power, body language, scent marking, rank enforcement. It's not chaos, it's order. Just not the kind we're used to. During times of scarcity, when carcasses are rare and lions roam in force, the true resilience of the hyena cartel is revealed. They don't disperse or scatter. They intensify their efforts. They probe lion movements more frequently. They scavenge smaller prey, hare, birds, reptiles. They split into subgroups to cover more ground, later reuniting at communal dens where cubs are cared for communally. No other predator clan maintains this level of coordination. They are not simply surviving. They are maintaining structure through famine. And that structure, paradoxically, makes them feared even by those more powerful. Lions can overpower a hyena, but they can't outmaneuver a clan. Leopards can escape into trees, but they can't protect their kill for long. Even crocodiles have been harassed by coordinated hyenas, pulling at limbs while avoiding the jaws. In the lawless stretches of the savannah, where power shifts with the wind and death is just another part of the daily cycle, one force remains strangely consistent: the cartel of the hyenas. Not a kingdom ruled by muscle, but a syndicate run by intelligence, persistence, and blood-soaked teamwork. Where others see scavengers, the ecosystem recognizes regulators, masters of opportunity, enforcers of efficiency, and the unchallenged brokers of the wild's underworld. This is not chaos. This is order by dominance. And the cackling laughter that echoes across the plain? That's not madness. That's the sound of control. The wind rises gently across the plain, stirring the tall grass in slow, whispering waves. High above, the sky is clear and endless, a pale dome stretching without interruption. In that stillness, barely visible to the eye, dark shapes circle in silence. They move slowly, each tracing a wide, deliberate spiral, gliding effortlessly without flapping their wings. From the ground, they seem detached from the living chaos below. But for the vultures, every inch of the savannah is under surveillance. They are watching, waiting, calculating. A herd of wildebeest mills below, unaware of the watchers. Among them is an old bull, lagging at the rear, each step stiff and uncertain. The vultures are watching him. Not because they intend to strike, but because nature has programmed them to notice weakness. Their vision, sharper than any land mammal's, is tuned not just for movement, but for subtle signs of change. A limp, a stagger, the faltering arc of an animal's gait, a hint of blood. These cues, imperceptible to most, flash like sirens in the minds of vultures. Their eyes are engineered for surveillance. While humans can spot a rabbit from 200 meters, a vulture can see a carcass from over 4 kilometers away. Some species, like the Ruppel's griffon vulture, have been recorded soaring as high as 11,000 meters, higher than commercial airplanes. From that height, they are not removed. They are informed. Every gust of wind, every ripple of activity is a signal in the vast network they operate. A single descending bird often attracts others, who interpret that shift in flight pattern as code. Something has died. But death doesn't always come before the vultures arrive. Sometimes their presence triggers it. Predators notice vultures too.
A lioness, panting under the heat, scans the sky. She sees the gathering spiral of descending birds. Her ears twitch. She knows what it means.
There's a fresh kill, or something close to it, not far from her range. She rises and begins to move. Elsewhere, jackals do the same. Hyenas, already roaming, subtly shift direction. The vultures don't follow death. They announce it, and their announcement can summon the very forces that will create it. It's a strange irony. The animals most associated with death don't cause it, yet often act as its herald. Their movements above influence the carnage below. The ecosystem pays attention to their patterns, their spirals, their descents. In some documented cases, large cats have followed vulture flocks to dying or injured prey and finished the job themselves. To many predators, the sky is not just a roof, it's a map. When a kill is fresh, the sky swells with wings. First, the white-backed vultures arrive, small and agile, descending fast and in numbers. Then the lappet-faced vultures appear, larger, stronger, more aggressive. With their powerful beaks, they tear open the thickest hides, often initiating the feast where others cannot. Once the body cavity is breached, chaos erupts. Dozens of birds, heads slick and red, pile over each other, hissing, biting, ripping. It's not elegant, but it's effective. Their bald heads, often mistaken for grotesque adaptations, are in fact a functional design. Feathers would trap bacteria and fluids during feeding, leading to dangerous infections. Instead, their skin remains exposed, easy to clean under the hot sun, which acts as a natural sterilizer. And while the feast appears disorderly, each species plays a role. The smaller hooded vultures pick away at soft tissues and overlooked scraps. The heavier griffins handle muscle and tendon. The lappet faces dominate bone and gristle. Together they dismantle a carcass in minutes, stripping it clean with a surgical efficiency no land predator can match. But this mastery has made them vulnerable, not in the wild but because of us. In some regions, farmers poison carcasses to kill lions or hyenas that threaten livestock. When vultures descend, they consume the same poison. The result is catastrophic. A single contaminated cow carcass can kill hundreds of birds. In India, the widespread use of diclofenac, a veterinary anti-inflammatory, led to a 99% collapse of vulture populations within a decade. The implications ripple outward. With fewer vultures, more carrion remains uneaten, more bacteria thrive. Rabid dogs and rats move in to fill the gap. The system decays. In parts of Africa, vulture body parts are sold in black markets for traditional medicine, based on the belief that their vision and instincts can be transferred through ritual. These beliefs, coupled with habitat loss, are pushing multiple vulture species toward extinction. Yet few animals are as ecologically vital. By consuming decaying matter, vultures prevent the spread of diseases such as anthrax, rabies, and tuberculosis. Without them, the savannah would rot. Their digestive systems are as extraordinary as their eyes. Vultures possess stomach acids with a pH close to 0, stronger than battery acid. This allows them to safely consume meat riddled with pathogens that would be lethal to almost any other animal. Dead animals lying in the sun become incubators for botulism, anthrax spores, and other deadly microbes. The vultures neutralize them effortlessly, acting as the final filter in nature's sanitation chain. They also form complex hierarchies at kill sites. A descending pecking order is maintained not just by size, but by persistence and timing. Latecomers often wait along the outskirts, wings slightly lifted, hopping awkwardly forward, gauging openings between beak and claw. One wrong move, a misplaced bite or challenge, and they may be driven off. But if they wait long enough, pick their moment, the rewards are immense. For a bird that flies hundreds of kilometers a day, a single large carcass can sustain it for nearly a week. Their endurance is unmatched. They soar not by flapping, but by mastering thermal currents, rising columns of warm air that allow them to travel for hours without expending much energy. A vulture on the wing covers more ground in a day than most predators do in a week. They are the wide-ranging scouts of the ecosystem, the roaming surveyors of the living and the dead. When the feeding ends, the silence returns just as quickly as it was broken. A few scraps remain, but the bulk is gone, consumed, recycled. The vultures rise again, drifting upward in lazy spirals, circling once more. Below, The bones bleach in the sun. A jackal trots through the remains, sniffing for leftovers, but finds little. The real feast has already come and gone, silently, efficiently, from the sky. In the mythology of death, vultures have long been cast as villains. Yet their role is neither sinister nor malevolent. They are caretakers, analysts, chemists of decay. In the brutal economy of the wild, where nothing is wasted, vultures are the ultimate accountants. They arrive when the ledger closes and make sure the books are balanced. And as they vanish once again into the upper reaches of the atmosphere, their silhouettes remind us that not all predators wear fangs. Some simply watch and wait. The morning light spills across the savannah in long gold ribbons, casting sharp shadows behind every bush, every stone, every carcass. The air is crisp, laced with the mingled scents of dung, trampled grass, and old blood. A pride of lions lies scattered in the dust, bellies swollen, paws twitching in post-feast torpor. The zebra they killed the night before lies half-eaten, ribs exposed like the frame of a broken boat. Flies swarm in thick clouds, and vultures watch patiently from a nearby tree. But another figure is watching too, smaller, silent, hidden. A jackal. Its coat blends seamlessly with the earth and sun-bleached grass, every step precise and silent. It knows the range of lion perception. It knows when to freeze, when to flick its ears, when to lower its head and vanish into the scent of rot. It doesn't charge in. It infiltrates. Every movement is governed by risk and reward. It's not hunger that drives this animal into danger. It's opportunity. Jackals are the overlooked tacticians of the predator world. Too small to dominate, too clever to be pushed out entirely, they exist between the cracks of larger forces. Their niche isn't earned by strength or fear, but by timing. Patience is their currency. And unlike the brute force scavenging of hyenas or the coordinated aerial sweeps of vultures, jackals operate with a kind of silent diplomacy, never overstaying, never making a sound unless necessary. Their advantage is invisibility, not intimidation. They watch the lions closely, reading the subtle signals of restlessness or agitation. A flick of a tail, a half-lifted head, any sign that a lion might rise and the jackal disappears. But when the lions doze fully, limbs splayed, mouths open, ears twitching to distant flies, it steps in. Not boldly, but precisely. It doesn't head for the obvious haunch of zebra or the exposed ribs. It moves toward a side that hasn't yet been picked clean, nudges a flap of skin, tears off a strip of flesh, and retreats a few paces to chew. It never forgets to look back. Jackals are generalists by nature. Their diet spans from insects and rodents to berries and lizards, but carrion remains a high-value prize. When large predators bring down prey, jackals often trail just behind them, not interfering with the kill, but cataloguing the players. They've been known to follow lions over kilometers, not stalking like prey, but tailing like paparazzi, waiting for the moment when jaws unclamp, when bellies fill, when no one's looking. They know that no kill remains guarded forever. What makes jackals so remarkable isn't just their stealth, but their strategic use of social bonds. These are not lone thieves. They are family units. Mated pairs often stay together for life, raising their pups cooperatively and defending small territories. When they scavenge, they do so in coordination. One may distract while the other darts in. Pups are trained early, observing how parents assess danger, how they pace their movements, how they vanish at the first sign of trouble. In one documented case, a pair of jackals approached a carcass guarded by a single lioness. Instead of rushing the kill, they made a slow arc downwind, sniffing and crouching in the brush. One jackal edged out to distract the lioness by darting toward her flank, triggering a half-hearted lunge. In that brief window of movement, the second jackal stole a strip of meat and vanished into the tall grass. By the time the lioness turned back, her tail lashing in irritation, the meal was already swallowed. Such behavior is not reckless. It's calculated. Unlike hyenas, who often commit to full-blown theft and confrontation, jackals are risk-averse. They play the margins. In many ecosystems, they feed not just at the carcass's edge, but in the wake of predators who've left only scraps. The pieces no one else bothers with, the gristle, the tendons, the bits tucked between bones, are valuable to jackals, especially when food is scarce. But it isn't just big cats that jackals manipulate. Elephants, those massive architects of the savannah, often stir up insects and small vertebrates as they move through brush or dig into the earth. Jackals follow, sometimes brazenly weaving between their legs, snapping up displaced prey without so much as a warning. The elephants rarely notice or care. To the jackal, the bulk of the herbivore provides both cover and chaos, a walking blind spot beneath which it thrives. During dry seasons, when kills are few and competition fierce, jackals shift tactics. They become early risers and late-night prowlers, exploiting cooler hours when predators are less active. They scavenge near rivers, dig for rodents, hunt scrub hares. Their vocalizations, high-pitched yelps and eerie howls, serve to locate mates, warn rivals, or mark territories. Yet unlike wolves or coyotes, their calls are subtle, almost apologetic, as if designed to avoid unwanted attention. Their physical form betrays nothing of their cunning. With narrow muzzles, lean frames, and bushy tails, they resemble harmless canines. But beneath that unassuming build is a brain, fine-tuned to survival in the shadows. Their senses are razor-sharp, their reflexes lightning fast, and their memory long. They remember the location of previous kills, the scent trails of predator patrols, the safest approach paths to risky sites. They learn, and they adapt. In agricultural zones, jackals have been known to synchronize their feeding with human routines, entering pastures only after dusk and retreating before dawn. In some regions, they've even been observed scavenging garbage dumps and raiding poultry coops, showcasing an ability to shift between wild and human-altered environments with ease. It's a skill few other carnivores possess with such fluidity. Yet despite their intelligence, jackals face constant danger. A lioness returning from water might detect their scent and pursue them out of spite. A hyena, hearing their call, might charge in and scatter the family. Even birds of prey pose a risk to young pups left too far from their den. Every day is a negotiation, a tightrope walk through risk and necessity. And still they endure, not through dominance, but through finesse. While other predators bleed for their meals or fight for position, jackals slip in and out of the scene like ghosts. The remains of a lion kill, the aftermath of a vulture frenzy, the crumbs of a hyena raid, these are enough. They don't need the main course. They just need a crack in the system, a moment in the margins. In the broader ecology of the scavenger world, jackals are the precision thieves. Not mobsters, not enforcers, not grim undertakers, but specialists. Quick, quiet, relentless. And as the lion pride rolls onto its side in a patch of shade, the jackal returns once more. Tongue flicking, tail down, eyes scanning every twitch of muscle. There is meat left on the bone. And in the code the jackal lives by, that's all the invitation it needs. The air over the plains is thick with heat and the slow stink of decay. Not the sharp, fresh scent of a recent kill, but something older. Something that's been baking in the sun for days, its outlines softening, its fluids soaking into the cracked soil beneath. Flies buzz in dense, agitated clouds, orbiting a carcass long since forgotten by the larger predators. No lions linger. The hyenas have stripped what they could. The vultures have come and gone, leaving only tendon, fragments of intestine, a half-crushed skull. But something still stirs beside the bones. A marabou stork stands there, hunched and motionless, the wind tugging lightly at its cloak of dusty feathers. It looks like a statue of some forgotten god of death, bald-headed, scab-necked, and cloaked in black and white rags. Its long bill is yellowed and cracked. Its eyes, small and beady, scan the ground with a kind of clinical detachment. Beside it, another stork lands with a heavy thud, feet splayed awkwardly in the dirt, as if dropped from the sky rather than landed by choice. They begin to feed, not in frenzy, but in grim, mechanical precision. Marabou storks are built not for grace, but for utility. At nearly 5 feet tall with wingspans over 3 meters, they are among the largest flying birds on Earth. Yet every aspect of their appearance seems designed to make you recoil. Their heads are featherless, coated in dry, flaky skin, often tinged with dried blood or filth. A pendulous throat sac hangs limply from their necks, used not for beauty or song, but for thermoregulation and occasional display. Their beaks are thick, dagger-shaped tools, perfect for tearing into the kinds of meat others leave behind. Unlike the sleek vulture, the marabou does not circle elegantly on thermals. Its flight is labored, more reminiscent of a glider than a bird of prey. It rises only when necessary and travels only as far as the smell of rot leads it. And when it arrives, it does not hesitate. While vultures may swarm with urgency, squabbling and flapping, the marabou moves with a kind of methodical calm, stepping through the remnants like a mortician at work. It selects the parts others avoid, the slop, the stomach lining, the fragments pressed into the dirt, and extracts them with practiced efficiency. They often arrive late to the feast, and that's by design. Their digestive systems are adapted not just for meat, but for decomposition. Where others turn away, the marabou thrives. Their stomach acid is powerful enough to break down not only carrion, but bone fragments, fur and skin. They have been observed feeding on everything from roadkill and trash to the discarded remains of fishing villages. In cities, they line landfills. In villages, they haunt butchering sites. In the wild, they return to carcasses abandoned by all else. They are the final sweepers, the end of the line, and yet they are not solitary undertakers. Marabou storks often work alongside vultures, though work may be too polite a term. They bully their way into feeding sites, using their size and sharp beaks to intimidate smaller scavengers. A marabou doesn't need numbers. It needs space. A few aggressive pecks are usually enough to clear a patch of the carcass just for itself. But where vultures tear open access points or strip the larger muscle groups, the stork prefers the gristle, the connective tissue, the leftovers smashed into bone crevices. Their roles are complementary, even if their tempers are not. Marabou storks are opportunists in the purest sense. When carrion is scarce, they turn to other food sources without hesitation. They raid flamingo nesting colonies for eggs and chicks, plucking the helpless young in their beaks and swallowing them whole. They snatch fish from drying pools, insects from disturbed brush, and occasionally scavenge human refuse. In some cases, they have been observed stealing meat directly from predator caches when the owner is momentarily absent. They are not fast, but they are bold. Their survival strategy relies not on speed or stealth, but on sheer nerve and unshakable patience. Despite their grotesque appearance, they are essential to the ecosystem. Carcasses, if left to rot in tropical heat, become breeding grounds for pathogens. Anthrax, botulism, cholera, and other deadly bacteria flourish in decomposing tissue. By consuming the foulest parts, particularly organ meats and decomposing soft tissues, marabou storks help halt the spread of these pathogens. Their digestive systems not only handle this microbial load, but neutralize it. They are walking incinerators for disease. Their role has become even more pronounced in human-altered landscapes. In many African towns, marabou storks are an unavoidable part of the skyline, roosting in trees, utility poles, and garbage heaps. Their presence is rarely welcomed. They're loud, messy, and intimidating. But without them, the refuse would linger. Disease would spike. And in rural regions without formal sanitation systems, their presence is not just useful, it's vital. They are the biological broom that sweeps what we choose to ignore. Their nesting colonies are noisy, chaotic affairs. Dozens of pairs build platform nests in tall trees, often close to water. Their young are awkward and pale, squawking constantly, demanding regurgitated food from their equally hideous parents. The smell is overpowering. The ground below becomes slick with droppings and scattered fish bones. Yet within this filth, order exists. Pairs defend their nests vigorously, and chicks grow quickly on a diet of meat, bone, and trash. Their lifespan can exceed 20 years in the wild, and during that time, they become familiar presences at the sites of death and decay. In dry seasons, when starvation looms, they become more active, more aggressive, scavenging in broader circles. When rains return, they switch diets, taking more fish, frogs, and insects from flooded plains. They adapt not just to the environment, but to its rhythms. Where others perish during drought, the marabou merely shifts its focus. And yet, for all their resilience, they are rarely admired. Their ugliness defines them in the public imagination. Their association with death, with waste, with rot, makes them easy symbols of disgust. But remove them, and the ecosystem falters. Remove them, and the rot lingers. They are the custodians of collapse, the final agents of decomposition. They don't beautify the world, but they keep it from choking on its own refuse. As the sun arcs higher in the sky, the carcass on the plains begins to fade into memory. The flies thin, the bones dry. What was once a feast is now a patch of dirt and hair, picked clean by birds that never once blinked at the stink. The marabou stork lifts its wings, wide and ragged, and catches the rising thermals.
It drifts lazily away, not in search of life, but of its absence. And somewhere ahead, in a quiet gully or roadside ditch, another forgotten body waits to be erased. Where vultures declare death, the marabou completes it. Not with a roar or a chase, but with silence, persistence, and a stomach that knows no fear. The forest is quiet, but not still. A low breeze rustles through the canopy, carrying the scent of rain-soaked bark, dust, and something darker, iron-rich and raw. Somewhere between the tangled roots and high branches, a leopard crouches on a thick, moss-covered limb. Its golden coat is dappled with shadow, its eyes locked onto the earth below. Beneath the tree lies a half-eaten impala, splayed in awkward silence. But the leopard is not the killer. The carcass bears the telltale marks of a cheetah kill. The clean puncture wound to the throat, the position of the legs as though they collapsed mid-sprint, and the fact that it lies fully intact in the open, unhoisted and vulnerable. Whatever happened here was swift and solitary. And whatever made the kill, cheetah or otherwise, has long since left the scene, likely chased off by something bigger, meaner, or simply more persistent. The leopard, descending now in deliberate silence, is here to collect the leftovers. In the hierarchy of predator prestige, hunting holds pride of place. It is the test of strength, stealth, and speed. Yet in the real world, the rules are far less romantic. Food is food, and a full belly rarely stops to ask where the meal came from. Despite their reputation as hunters, many of the world's most iconic predators are also scavengers, opportunists who steal when they can and return to old kills when hunger and chance align. Apex predators are not above cheating the system. In fact, they are experts at it. Leopards, often romanticized as solitary assassins of the night, are among the most opportunistic of all. Their strength lies not just in their ambush power or climbing prowess, but in their flexibility. A leopard can drag a fresh kill 6 meters up a tree to avoid hyenas. But it can just as easily sneak in after a lion pride has abandoned a carcass and help itself to the remains. Unlike cheetahs, who almost always lose their kills to stronger rivals, leopards are more pragmatic. If they can hunt, they will. If they can steal without risk, they don't hesitate. A male leopard padding through its territory at dawn might pass dozens of scent trails, some from prey, some from other predators, and some from blood. The sharp coppery odor of a recent kill lingers for hours, sometimes more. With nostrils flaring and ears twitching, the leopard investigates. It doesn't always know what awaits: a fresh carcass, a decoy, a sleeping lioness. But the potential reward often outweighs the risk. If the sight is clear, the cat wastes no time. It feeds fast, dragging chunks of meat into thicker brush or up into low branches. It eats with caution, stopping every few mouthfuls to listen, scan, reassess. The kill is not his, and the danger of retribution remains. This behavior is not limited to leopards. Lions, those symbols of dominance, are among the most blatant scavengers in the wild. A large pride requires hundreds of pounds of meat per week, and their hunts fail more often than they succeed. To compensate, they steal, from hyenas, from cheetahs, from leopards, from each other. A lioness with cubs may track the movements of a hunting cheetah, and upon hearing the strangled cries of dying prey, rush in to claim the result. The cheetah, aware of its vulnerability, flees the moment it sees the lioness. The lioness eats first. Her cubs eat second. The hunter eats never. This same cycle plays out in reverse when smaller predators get lucky. A cheetah returning to an abandoned kill might find it only partially eaten. The scraps left behind by a lion pride, gut content, sinew, part of a leg, are still valuable to an animal that burns immense calories with each sprint. Even a few minutes of feeding can delay the need for another high-speed chase. These brief scavenging episodes are acts of survival, not shame. Scavenging is not a flaw in the predator's code, it's an adaptive strength. The energy cost of a full hunt is enormous. For lions, it means coordinating a multi-pronged ambush. For leopards, it means a slow, tense stalk through underbrush, followed by a lightning pounce and strangulation. For cheetahs, it's a sprint that can reach 100 kilometers per hour, but at a metabolic cost so high, it leaves them panting and vulnerable for minutes afterward. All of these methods work, but all are risky. So when food is available without the hunt, most predators take the deal. Even within species, scavenging behavior reveals much about individual temperament. A bold young leopard may steal from hyenas if it feels confident, using speed and surprise. An old lioness, too arthritic to chase prey, may trail her pride and feed only after others have finished. In areas near human settlements, some leopards have learned to scavenge livestock killed by feral dogs or snared by traps, exploiting human wastefulness as a food source. These acts are not born of laziness. They are shaped by necessity, experience, and environment. The risk, however, is always present. Predators are not immune to danger when scavenging. A lion attempting to claim a carcass from a hippo may be caught between crushing jaws. A leopard drawn to an old kill may be ambushed by a rival male, the fight ending in blood and bites. Disease also looms. Meat left in the sun attracts bacteria. Botulism, anthrax, and other pathogens can survive in carrion for days. And while many scavengers are resistant, there is always a cost to feeding from the dead. What makes the scavenging behavior of apex predators so fascinating is how it blurs the clean categories we often impose. Hunter versus scavenger, killer versus thief. In reality, these roles are interchangeable. A lion may kill in the morning, scavenge in the afternoon, and be robbed by hyenas by nightfall. A leopard may hoard a kill in a tree one day, then feed on spoiled meat the next. The ecosystem doesn't care about the origin of a meal, only that energy is transferred, reused, absorbed. These predators don't carry reputations. We assign them. We call the lion a noble hunter, the hyena a cowardly thief, the cheetah a graceful sprinter. But all of them, everyone, steals, shares, cheats, and scavenges when it suits them. They follow a logic older than image, and in that logic, a carcass is an opportunity, not a trophy. Ownership is temporary. Death is a public event. So the leopard eats now, muscles tensing with each swallow, ears flicking at every insect buzz or broken twig. The sun climbs higher, and the meat turns darker, drier, less forgiving. But for the leopard, it's a gift, one that required no chase, no climb, no blood on its own claws. Just timing, just instinct, just the right kind of silence. And when it finishes, it melts back into the undergrowth, the kill still cooling behind it, ready for the next shadow to take its turn. The sun slips beneath the horizon, dragging the last warmth from the sky. What remains is a faint violet hue that quickly fades to black. The air cools in waves, settling over the land like a breath held in stillness. The noises of the day, the grunts of buffalo, the bickering of birds, the endless buzz of flies, dissolve into silence. In their place comes a different rhythm, subtle, elusive, the padded steps of unseen feet, the dry rustle of scales against bark, a pair of eyes blinking open in the underbrush. This is the hour of the opportunists, creatures that wait for the cover of darkness to emerge and feed on what others leave behind. In the soft gloom, the carcass lies forgotten by the dominant predators. Blood has dried. Most of the meat has been torn and scattered. The lions are gone. The vultures sleep in tall acacias. The marabou stalks, heavy and gassy from the day's feast, roost in silence. The battlefield seems abandoned until the shadows begin to move again. This is when the scavenger guild of the night begins its quiet takeover. A civet is the first to appear, low to the ground, patterned in blotches and bands that flicker under the moonlight like camouflage. It trots with a careful gait, pausing every few steps to sniff the air. Civets are not powerful. They don't challenge or dominate, but they are meticulous, surgical even, in how they feed. They target what others miss: fatty tissues, bits of gristle wedged in bone, small insects still feeding on the remains. Their diet is astonishingly broad. They will eat rotting fruit, bird eggs, beetles, and carcass marrow with equal enthusiasm. And they do it all with a discretion that ensures they remain almost invisible. Further downwind, a honey badger lumbers out from its burrow. It's not large, but its presence is undeniable. With a low-slung body and thick fur shielded against bites and stings, the honey badger moves like a tank among rodents. Its claws tear open logs and burrows in seconds, but when scavenging, it becomes more selective, less destructive, using its keen sense of smell to find bone marrow or hidden fat deposits left untouched by other scavengers. Though often portrayed as fearless, the honey badger in scavenger mode is surprisingly measured. It doesn't waste energy on conflict. It sizes up the site, feeds quickly, and retreats into shadow. Elsewhere, in a patch of dense scrub, a striped hyena appears, the ghost cousin of the more notorious spotted variety. These hyenas don't form large clans or conduct raids. They move alone or in pairs, quietly covering vast distances in a single night. Where their spotted kin rely on force, striped hyenas rely on silence. Their presence is marked by faint tracks and a low musical whoop that barely carries on the wind. Unlike the violent feeding frenzies of the day, the striped hyena's visit to a kill site is a slow procession. It gnaws bones with practiced strength, cracking femurs to reach the core. Its digestive system, like that of its relatives, is capable of dissolving bone and horn, allowing it to consume what others discard. Above, a barn owl glides silently across the open clearing. Its face is moon-pale, its wings broad and soundless. Though not a scavenger in the traditional sense, the owl thrives in this same nocturnal economy. It hunts rodents drawn to the scraps left behind, gerbils, grass mice, even the insects that swarm around exposed entrails. The owl's role is indirect but vital. It cleans up the cleanup crew, removing those smaller scavengers that might otherwise spread disease or compete with each other in unchecked numbers. Its call, a soft, breathy screech, is the voice of the unseen. The night is filled with such hidden layers. Genets slink along tree branches, their bodies fluid and cat-like, scanning the forest floor for eggs, carrion and beetles. Mongooses work in loose units, occasionally skirting the edge of a carcass to pick maggots or dried flesh from tendons. Even porcupines, lumbering and herbivorous by reputation, are sometimes drawn to old kills, gnawing bones for calcium and minerals. In this world, nothing is wasted. Everything has value, and every species knows its role. What binds these nocturnal scavengers is not dominance, but timing. They are not powerful enough to claim food during the frenzy of day. They don't compete with lions, challenge vultures, or squabble with hyena mobs. They wait. Their skill lies in exploiting windows of safety, those few hours between predator departure and sunrise. Their feeding is solitary, careful, and constantly interrupted by checks of the wind, the brush, the silent signal of a shifting shadow. They are scavengers who cannot afford attention. The diversity of this nighttime guild also illustrates how adaptable scavenging can be. While the bold and brutish fight during daylight, these smaller species engage in a kind of ecological finesse, a scavenger ballet of precision and memory. Their sense of smell is often more refined than their vision. Their spatial awareness maps kill sites as territories, each visit calculated against the presence of others. A civet might return to the same spot 4 nights in a row, taking only what new insects appear. A hyena may follow a week-old scent trail to find a rib cage left untouched. Each actor knows when to arrive and what to seek. This behavior isn't limited to the wild. In urban and peri-urban areas, many of these same animals adapt to human leftovers. Civets are found rummaging through garbage near settlements. Striped hyenas in the outskirts of villages quietly scavenge from dumps, sometimes raiding livestock pens when meat is scarce. Owls shift to feed on rodents infesting grain silos. The pattern remains the same: feed quietly, move quickly, avoid detection. The darkness protects them, not just from predators but from us. Yet these creatures are not passive recipients of the dead. They shape the environment by what they remove. They reduce disease loads, minimize rot, and redistribute nutrients. A half-eaten carcass becomes a feast for microbes and maggots. But when the nocturnal scavengers pass through, they reset the balance. Fewer remains mean fewer breeding grounds for harmful bacteria. Even the stripping of bone serves a purpose, allowing calcium to be recycled into the soil, into new life. As night deepens, the activity quiets once more. The civet retreats into the undergrowth. The owl drifts back to its hollow. The striped hyena disappears into the distance, its striped coat fading into the moonlit brush. The carcass is now almost unrecognizable, picked, crushed, rearranged by a dozen anonymous visitors. What began as a violent end has become a slow dismantling, and no predator stands guard. In the soft hush before dawn, the sight is still again. Only the bones remain, glistening pale against the soil, surrounded by silence that hums with a different kind of order, one built not by tooth and claw, but by patience and shadows. The ghosts of the night leave no trophies, no howls, no battles, just the clean, quiet signature of lives that survive by what others forget. The savannah is a stage of deceptions, a landscape painted with predators and prey, but also with illusionists, animals that bend the rules by pretending to be something they're not. In this theater of survival, not all power comes from strength. Some of it comes from confusion, from performance. The trickster lives here too, cloaked not in muscle but in mimicry, timing and misdirection. These are the scavengers who don't just wait for food. They create their chances, sometimes with a well-timed act of death. In the dry grass near a buzzard-pecked carcass, a small mongoose lies limp, limbs splayed unnaturally, chest still. It looks like just another victim of the heat or a failed chase. Flies gather, sensing decay. But the mongoose isn't dead. Not yet. It's performing. In the distance, a jackal approaches, eyes on the carcass, unaware that this inert body is very much alive. The mongoose's stillness is strategic. It knows that movement means threat, and threat means confrontation. But if it lies long enough, if it appears non-threatening enough, it might share in the spoils or go unnoticed entirely. This kind of deception plays out more than one might think. While classic scavenging is often a matter of timing, in rare cases, animals use deception to insert themselves into situations they'd otherwise never survive. Among the most extreme examples is the opossum, a creature native not to African plains, but to the Americas, whose entire defense mechanism is to simulate death. When threatened, its body goes limp, eyes roll back, and a foul-smelling fluid is released from its glands to mimic the scent of decomposition. It becomes, for all intents and purposes, a corpse. And many predators lose interest, unwilling to eat what they didn't kill. This act, called thanatosis, is not a conscious decision, but an automatic neurological shutdown. The opossum tricks its own nervous system, becoming a prop in its own survival. But death mimicry isn't limited to self-defense. In some cases, it's used to manipulate the behavior of others. Certain wading birds like the hamerkop are known to emit distress calls near carcasses, luring scavengers toward the noise. The reason? Distraction. While the larger animals fight over the meat, the hamerkop sneaks in, snatches insects or fat deposits, and disappears. It's not strong enough to fight. It doesn't need to be. It just needs to mislead. Even predators can be deceived by these tactics. In grassland ecosystems, some raptors are fooled by reptiles or birds who play dead until the last moment. The common sand boa, when threatened, coils tightly and lays its head motionless to appear lifeless, sometimes even excreting waste to simulate decomposition. Once the danger has passed, it resumes movement as if nothing had happened. Some scavengers exploit these same tendencies, appearing near carcasses as if they're part of the refuse, only to shift positions when no one is watching. Crows and ravens are especially adept at this game. Their intelligence is well documented, but their flair for deception is rarely appreciated in full. A raven approaching a carcass guarded by larger scavengers will often pretend to cache food, burying a small scrap in the dirt while watching others. But if another animal approaches the false cache, the raven retrieves the actual prize from a different spot entirely. It created a decoy, not for camouflage, but to mislead rivals. Ravens also mimic alarm calls of other birds to clear feeding sites or delay other scavengers, allowing themselves a few extra seconds to feed. They weaponize false alarms as a tool for advantage. Even insects get in on the act. Certain species of carrion beetles emit chemical signals that mimic the scent of active decomposition. These signals can attract flies, which lay eggs the beetles then consume. Others mimic the pheromones of ants, allowing them to move undetected through ant colonies and feed on larvae or discarded meat. These tricks are not just adaptations, they're exploitations. The scavenger has evolved not just to consume, but to manipulate the system of consumption itself. In the underwater world, deception becomes even more elaborate. The frogfish, an ambush predator with scavenger tendencies, dangles a fleshy lure from its head, resembling a wounded worm or small fish. When curious prey approach to investigate what appears to be a free meal, the frogfish opens its jaws and engulfs them in less than 1/10 of a second. It is not scavenging, strictly speaking, but the behavior mimics the cues of carrion, inviting inspection and punishing assumption. And in the mangrove fringes and estuaries, mud skippers, those odd air-breathing fish that drag themselves across wet sand, have been observed feigning sluggishness or distress to lure rival scavengers close. The moment another mudskipper closes in to inspect, the actor springs to life, chasing the intruder from the tide pool and reclaiming feeding territory. Here, even mimicry of incompetence becomes a weapon. Back on land, one of the most curious examples comes from the behavior of certain antelope species. When near the edge of death, wounded, heat-exhausted, or cornered, some will lie flat, motionless, mimicking death so convincingly that predators like lions or wild dogs lose interest. This is not always successful, but when it works, the antelope will suddenly rise and bolt the moment attention shifts. In those precious seconds, survival is snatched from inevitability. These moments are rarely about deception for gain. They're about deception for escape. But scavengers witnessing such moments may treat the fallen antelope as fair game, only to find themselves staring in confusion as their meal springs to life and vanishes into the bush. Deception in scavenging is a subtle craft, often invisible to the casual observer. It doesn't announce itself, it doesn't roar, but its effects ripple through ecosystems like wind through grass. The presence of a fake call can disrupt the feeding rhythm of an entire kill site. A decoy carcass, or the illusion of disease, can delay vultures and allow smaller creatures to feed first. And as the scavenger landscape grows more competitive, such tactics are becoming more widespread. Humans too have unwittingly trained animals to manipulate our patterns. Urban foxes learn garbage collection schedules, pretending to pass by trash bins until the coast is clear. Raccoons in suburban areas freeze at the sound of car engines, only to resume scavenging once the noise fades. In some cases, wild dogs have learned to mimic the warning barks of domestic dogs to distract humans while they raid livestock waste. The boundaries between survival and performance blur. In this world, the scavenger is not always a brute. Sometimes it's a strategist, a con artist, a performer in the grand drama of predation and decay. These are the animals that steal not only meat, but moments, fleeting chances, temporary advantages, the 10-second window where pretending to be dead might be the smartest move on earth. So when the next carcass lies cooling in the dust and the air smells thick with old blood, not all who gather do so honestly. Some creep in like ghosts. Others arrive with a plan, and a few will wear masks of fear, of weakness, of death itself, just long enough to take what they need and disappear again into the noise and movement of the wild. The wind sweeps low across the open plain, bending the tall grass into long, sinuous waves. At first glance, the land feels at rest. Grazers clustered around a waterhole, birds skimming the heat shimmer above the dust. But something feels different. There's a tension in the air that doesn't come from lions or leopards. It comes from the shadows that don't belong, from the creatures usually seen circling in the aftermath. Today, the scavengers are not waiting. They're moving first. A spotted hyena stalks across the clearing, head low, limbs bent in a fluid-controlled pace. It's alone, but not for long. 3 more flank it from the bushline, fanning out in near silence. They don't cackle, don't laugh. There's no sound but the faint rustle of grass beneath heavy paws. Ahead, a wildebeest herd grazes without urgency, but with the unconscious awareness that things shift quickly in this world. They're used to scanning for lions, but not for what now emerges from the grass. The myth that scavengers are lazy is one of the most persistent misconceptions in nature. But reality tells a different story. Spotted hyenas, often portrayed as thieves and parasites, are in fact some of the most efficient hunters on the continent. In regions where lion populations are low, they are the dominant predator, with documented kill rates that rival or even exceed those of big cats. The idea that they steal for a living overlooks their primary skill: organized persistence. The chase begins not with a charge, but a sudden shift in momentum. One hyena veers, forcing the edge of the wildebeest herd to shudder and tighten. The others press from the flanks, exploiting confusion. There's no sprinting ambush, no elegant pounce. This is a war of attrition. The target is a calf, its limbs too new, its instincts too slow. Within minutes, it's separated from the herd, panting, stumbling. The hyenas close in. There's no ceremony. They do not wait for the kill to finish before tearing flesh. The pack works in brutal efficiency. One grips the leg, another the haunch. The calf collapses, and the grass turns dark beneath it. In moments like this, the scavenger becomes something else entirely. Not a reclaimer of death, but an architect of it. But hyenas are not alone in this shift. High in the cliffs, overlooking dry riverbeds and nesting grounds, the unlikeliest of hunters takes wing. The vulture, usually the final witness to death, has its own dark side. Though many vulture species are obligate scavengers, surviving solely on carrion, some are not so bound by rules. The lappet-faced vulture, a heavy-beaked brute often seen dominating feeding sites, has been observed preying on the weak and the newborn. In rare but telling moments, these birds descend not onto dead animals, but onto live ones too frail to resist. In lambing or calving seasons, when gazelle or antelope give birth in exposed places, vultures sometimes strike. They circle not just to monitor mortality, but to encourage it. A newborn not yet on its feet becomes vulnerable. A mother briefly distracted may return to find her young already bleeding, the vulture's beak buried in the softest tissue. It's not common, but it happens. And when it does, it challenges the tidy line between scavenger and predator. The shift is not always as dramatic as a kill. Sometimes it's more like pressure, an opportunistic shove in the direction of death. Vultures landing near a laboring mother can panic her, causing her to flee and abandon her calf. That calf, still coated in amniotic fluid, becomes a beacon for hyenas, jackals, even storks. The scavengers don't create death directly, but their presence tips the scale. For jackals, however, that line is blurred daily. Sly, quick, and adaptable, jackals are known for trailing lions, hyenas, and cheetahs, darting in to steal scraps. But they're hunters in their own right, and they aren't picky about the size of their quarry. Along salt flats and lagoon edges, jackals have been observed targeting flamingos. The pink birds gather in enormous, dazzling flocks, thousands moving in near unison. To most predators, the mass is overwhelming. To a jackal, it's a buffet with only one rule: isolate the weak. At twilight, when the light flattens the terrain into a grey sheet, jackals begin their advance. They move low, ears erect, testing the reactions of the nearest birds. If one lags behind, falters, or reacts a beat too slow, that's the one. The chase is not graceful. It's chaotic and dusty, filled with squawks and flapping wings. But once the jackal gets close, it lunges, clamps its jaws around the neck or leg, and pulls the bird down in a flurry of feathers. The kill is quick. Within minutes, others arrive, mate, pups, sometimes rival jackals hoping to share the prize. A scavenger's network becomes a hunter's team. Even among birds, the lines blur. Crows and ravens, notorious for feeding on roadkill and trash, have been observed attacking weak or injured animals, especially small birds or mammals. In times of scarcity, they may actively chase and peck prey until exhaustion sets in. In Arctic regions, glaucous gulls and skuas patrol breeding grounds of other seabirds, plucking hatchlings from nests the moment the parent turns away. These birds thrive in the in-between. They'll take a corpse, a wounded animal, or a live one, as long as it's easy. This flexibility is more than mere opportunism. It's a survival strategy honed by scarcity. Scavengers tend to thrive in environments where food is inconsistent: drought zones, post-migration wastelands, and heavily contested territories. In these places, waiting is dangerous. Passivity risks starvation. So they adapt. They stop waiting. In some ecosystems, this behavioral fluidity begins young. Spotted hyena cubs, for example, show hunting behavior within weeks of leaving the den, even as they still nurse. They practice on insects, then lizards, then small ungulates. They scavenge, yes, but they prefer to hunt when given the chance. The idea that scavenging is easier is only true for those who arrive late. For those who lead the approach, it's still a fight, still a risk. Even large omnivores, animals like bears, illustrate the spectrum clearly. Grizzlies are famous for digging up carcasses, raiding kill sites, or cleaning up salmon spawns. But they're also formidable hunters. A bear that begins as a scavenger may switch instantly to active pursuit when it encounters a caribou calf or a careless ground squirrel. Like hyenas, their strategies are dictated by energy economics, not ethics. In this shifting landscape, the very definition of predator becomes fluid. A scavenger with enough boldness becomes a hunter. A hunter out of luck becomes a scavenger. They share tactics, trade places, and overlap constantly. It's not cheating. It's evolution's most honest answer to uncertainty. As the day dies and the sun's last light fractures behind the hills, the scavengers return. But not all of them are content to wait. Some creep forward before the death blow. Some test the waters, harass the edges, take what isn't yet dead. And when they do, they remind us of something uncomfortably simple, that hunger has no moral compass, no hierarchy of methods, just opportunity, just teeth, just time. The morning sun bleeds slowly over the horizon, casting a low amber glow across the open plains. In its light, the carcass of a zebra lies still and quiet, bones picked clean, the grass around it matted with blood and footprints. There is no motion now, no vultures squabbling or hyenas circling. Only a skull remains, polished by days of teeth, beaks and wind. It is a ghost of chaos, a monument to a process most overlook. Yet this skeleton tells a story far more complex than death. It tells of life sustained through removal, of a balance kept not by the hunter, but by those who follow behind. Scavengers often exist in the margins, physically, ecologically, even in the stories we tell. We romanticize the chase, the strike, the final pounce. But when the roar fades and the kill is made, it is the scavengers who assume the quiet role of cleanup. Their actions may not be glamorous, but they are essential. Without them, the wild would choke on its own mortality. A single elephant carcass left unattended becomes a factory of disease. The decomposing flesh attracts flies that lay thousands of eggs. Bacteria bloom, anthrax, botulism, salmonella, and seep into nearby water, into soil, into the breathing space of every creature nearby. But when hyenas descend, tearing muscle from bone, when vultures rip through tendon and gut, when marabou storks scoop maggot-ridden tissue from the gaps, they do more than feed. They sanitize. What they don't eat is dried and picked clean, exposed to air and sun in ways that reduce the breeding grounds for pathogens. Scavengers are mobile biohazard units. Vultures, in particular, are among the few creatures capable of consuming rotting meat infected with anthrax or rabies without falling ill, thanks to their intensely acidic stomachs. Their gut flora neutralizes these deadly microbes before they can cycle back into the environment. A vulture may not be able to stop the death of an animal, but it can stop that death from cascading into a health crisis for everything else nearby. In Africa's savannahs, India's fields, and the Americas' open ranges, the story repeats itself. When scavengers thrive, disease rates drop, not just in wildlife, but in livestock and even human populations. In places where vulture populations have plummeted, particularly in South Asia, the consequences have been severe. The collapse of vulture numbers due to diclofenac, a veterinary drug deadly to birds, led to rotting carcasses persisting in open air for days. Opportunistic species like feral dogs and rats surged, bringing with them higher incidences of rabies, plague, and other zoonotic threats. But the threat to scavengers goes beyond medicine. Fear drives much of the hostility. Hyenas are shot on sight for the occasional livestock raid, despite playing a role in controlling disease and removing carcasses that would otherwise rot near human settlements. Vultures are poisoned, sometimes unintentionally when farmers lace carcasses with toxins meant for lions, and sometimes deliberately when belief systems portray them as omens or nuisances. Jackals are trapped or culled in misguided attempts to reduce predator numbers, despite their scavenging services, reducing populations of crop-damaging rodents and cleaning up after more dangerous carnivores. Humans struggle with ambiguity. A lion, we admire for its majesty. A vulture, we recoil from in discomfort. But ecology is indifferent to aesthetics. Beauty plays no role in balance. The scavenger, with its bald head, grim call, or sideways slink, may appear unpleasant, but its presence signals health. Even ecosystems without large predators depend on scavengers to process waste and mortality. In deserts, beetles and ants remove carrion in hours. In coastal estuaries, crabs devour fish carcasses left by tides. In forests, opossums and raccoons consume rotting fruit and dead nestlings, preventing disease outbreaks. Across biomes, the role of the scavenger emerges as a linchpin, not just in controlling disease, but in recycling nutrients back into the system. A carcass that is scavenged feeds not just the scavenger, but the earth. Bones gnawed down release calcium into the soil. Dung beetles roll away the aftermath, burying it, fertilizing the roots of trees. And when that system is broken, when scavengers are removed, persecuted, or driven to the edge, the collapse is subtle at first. Carcasses linger, insects bloom, parasites spread, rodents multiply.
Predators begin targeting domestic livestock more frequently as natural processes break down, and the landscape, once self-regulating, begins to fester. Yet scavengers are not beyond recovery. Conservation efforts in parts of Africa have shown that when vulture safe zones are implemented, areas where poisoned carcasses are banned and nesting trees protected, populations begin to rebound. In Europe, reintroductions of bearded vultures in alpine regions have allowed carcass decomposition to return to natural rates. In rural India, the banning of diclofenac, while slow to take effect, has led to signs of stabilization in vulture breeding colonies. These rebounds prove a vital truth, that the system still remembers how to function. It only needs the parts restored. This understanding is beginning to shift global conservation thinking. Once considered background actors in the grand play of life, scavengers are increasingly recognized as keystone species, not because they dominate, but because they connect. They bridge death and life, predator and prey, soil and sky. They ensure that nothing is truly wasted, that energy always moves, even through decay. The savannah with no vultures is not cleaner. The riverbank without jackals is not safer. The field without hyenas is not more peaceful. Each absence leaves a hole, a cavity not just in population numbers, but in function. The wild is not just a place of birth and death, but of transfer, of cleanup, conversion, digestion and dispersal. And the scavenger stands at the heart of that process, reminding us that survival doesn't always roar. Sometimes it picks at bones, rolls through refuse, and moves quietly through the aftermath. As the light rises fully and the plains begin to stir with movement, zebras twitching their tails, impalas flicking their ears, birds launching into the air, the remnants of yesterday's death are already gone. Not by miracle, not by wind, but by labor, the unseen, uncelebrated, tireless labor of those who eat what others won't. The thieves, the cleaners, the custodians of balance. Without them, the wild would not function. And without understanding them, we risk undoing the very systems that keep life in motion. The scavenger does not ask for applause, only for space and time, and the quiet right to do what it has always done, keep the wild from drowning in its own dead weight.